right, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in live with us at DentonRadio.com. On the phones with us, we are very, very excited to be welcoming yet another filmmaker for the Denton Black Film Festival. The Denton Black Film Festival is right around the corner. If you have not gotten your tickets yet, now is the time. Talking live with us tonight, we have got Cheryl Fabio, director and producer of Evolutionary Blues. How are you tonight, Cheryl?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being a part of the show. We've been really looking forward to this. And Denton is such a music town, and we get to talk so much about local music here and the work we do here at Denton Radio. And so this particular film, I've been really, really excited to get to talk about this, Evolutionary Blues. Tell us a little bit about the film and what all it pertains to and the story behind all of it.
Well, Evolutionary Blues is it's a story, it's a history of a community here in Oakland, California. It's called West Oakland. West Oakland was the end of the Southern Pacific Railroad lines, and it was also a destination for African Americans leaving the South from Louisiana, from Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas. And there's a real strong Texas connection with this little community in Oakland. In fact, when I put out that we were part of the festival, I got all the reasons. Sly Stone is from Denton, and Sly Stone he's central to. We were talking earlier about the second generation. So Sly Stone is central to the second generation, and he's talked about in the film, but no, I didn't chase him down. But the thing that's really sweet about our film, I think, we talk about the 40s, we talk about those folks who had shown up here to escape the South, but also to build a new future, and then they had to find a way. Because frankly, when they got here, it was as segregated as it was in the South. So they had to find and develop their own community, our own commerce and all of that. One guy named Bob Giddings decided that he needed to bring the blues to Oakland. And he, has moved through the South and knew the taste of people. So he kind of melded all of those sounds together and put in place Oakland blues by recording local musicians, by not only recording them, but also kind of bending the way they did the blues and then recording them. So Bob Giddings, you can Google him. He was prolific, and Oakland sound can be attributed to him because he exported it in the way that records will export when the musicians are kind of landlocked, right? So we have people like Lowell Fulson that came through him, Jimmy McCracklin. But then you had other things like Charles Sullivan. This sounds a little dry, let me say, but it's actually fun. It's fun because the music carries it. It's a 90-minute film. There's 70 minutes of music in it.
Oh,
and
nice.
and we put the music of whoever it is that is either being talked about or who's talking on camera. It's really the stories people are telling are so heartwarming. It's a nice film. I don't mind saying so myself. I think I just got a little carried away.
Good. No, I love it. I love it. Well, very, very, very cool. I know a lot of people are really, really looking forward to this one. So we got to talk a little bit about, the political aspect along with the music. And I had asked you earlier, and you got to talk a little bit about it, is which came first, the music and then the politics, or the politics and then the music?
Well, the people came first. And African Americans have a history with the United States. It's such a maligned history, so that where they go, there's a politics that's following them because there's always a reaction. So part of the discovery in our film is that the very thing people are escaping from the Jim Crow South, they find eventually in the places that they escape to.
Mm.
So the politics is coming, but the music is always in the moment, reflecting whatever the experience whatever the experience is. And as I did say to you earlier, when the musicians talk about the blues, they talk about it as a people's story, and that story can change. It can change in rhythm, it can change in style, but it's always that people's story. So now when you look at it like that, um, maybe the music came first. So it's a chicken and the egg kind of conversation.
Mm.
But there's always a politics that's following African Americans, and
Mm.
you can always see the expression or the reaction or even the proaction to that politics in the songs and in the music
Mm-hmm.
that's being formed in our community.
Mm. Now, can you touch a little bit, and we got to talk about this before as well, can you touch a little bit on blues and the African American experience?
Well, it is rooted. It's rooted in the Deep South. It's
Mm.
rooted in the experience of enslaved people. It is the way that folks would survive a day of hard labor. And there's field hollers. There's call and response. There's all of this stuff. And as people moved around, that sound moved around,
Mm.
and the stories that are being told. So sometimes in the original slave hollers and all of that, there's not necessarily a narrative story being told, but there is a story being told, and the grunts and the moans and all that other stuff. And there's often words. Sometimes they are so ingenious that they could take a simple folk tale and flip it into a blues just from the phrasing and the way
Mm.
that those words are articulated and sung. And so there's like you can there's debates about, is it mournful and sorrowful, or is it jumpy and joyous? It can be
Mm.
all of those things. And as the people change, that music changes. So when our community, Oakland is also known as one of the bedrock band cities during the funk era.
Mm.
And those musicians started out as kids. So a lot of our people that are in this film started at 12, crazy ages like that, playing professionally.
Wow.
But by the time they were 20, they're playing funk music, right? They've gone through soul, they've gone through R&B, and they're funk musicians. And they'll tell you that that's even rooted in the blues. So I find it fascinating to listen to these musicians. We've interviewed about 35 musicians in this film.
Mm.
And when they talk about where their inspiration comes from and all of that, I just find it so fascinating. And I probably, in my head, probably had nothing to do with the reality of what's in their heads as artists. So
Mm.
it was a real joy to work on this project.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, and that leads me into my next point that I wanted to touch on. You were very intentional about telling the story through the lens of the people that lived it. Can you touch on that a little bit and how that makes this really unique in the way that you told this story?
Well, it does make it unique. Well, first of all, let me say that when I went to film school in the 70s, uh, we called it first voice filmmaking. So
Mm.
I'm pretty intentional whenever I'm making a film. I want whoever I'm making it about to be saying whatever it is that's being said. And my job is to craft it into a story with all of the elements. So I was intentional, and I kept saying to the crew, "No, there won't be any narrators in this, and we won't take those bridges. We are going to have to find what we need in the material, or go shoot some more, right?" Um, but what you do get is clarity about, like, what's the root of this music, and also what does this music mean. So they see the blues, our musicians here that are in this film see the blues as starting on those plantations and weaving all the way through hip hop to today's contemporary music. That's not necessarily what everybody else is thinking. Everybody else is not necessarily linking hip
Yeah.
hop or rap to soul music, for instance, right? So you get a different view of history. I love it when Isabel Wilkerson talks in the film about the migration being a revolution through people's feet rather than an escape to find better jobs. That distinction just, it's a powerful distinction. It makes people self-motivated as opposed to running after an economy. It makes them entrepreneurial. It makes them risk takers. So those kind of nuances, when people describe their own history, that's something to pay attention to, because it could be that when we're always telling you what your history is, we miss the point.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I am so looking forward to this piece. Now, this was sponsored by the City of West Oakland, and then so that, which is really cool in and of itself to kind of tell that story of that area. What inspired you personally to get involved in this?
Well, so first, we're the City of Oakland. So we're in Oakland, California, across the bay from San Francisco. The producing entity is KTOP, and that's the City of Oakland's government channel.
Cool.
I used to work for them a few years ago, and I haven't for the past 10 years. And they asked me if I would direct and produce it. Well, I love the crew there. And I also knew that we worked really well together. So, number one, I knew that I could finish this project because we do work well together. But also, it's a dream project for me because it tells about a community that there's a lot of mystique. I mean, right now, that's a ghost town, basically. But it brings it back to life. There's still a lot of people alive who lived in that neighborhood in its heyday, and you should see their reaction to it. They give this heartfelt thanks to seeing them again, right? So that in reflecting themselves back to themselves. We have some beautiful vintage photographs in it, and I could just see all of that as the potential. And I was actually, I quit a job to come do this. Now I have to go back and find a job. But I was so excited because I really love using film to tell African American stories. It's my life's work.
Very cool. Very, very, very cool. Well, the film, again, is Evolutionary Blues. Please come on down to the Denton Black Film Festival and check it out. You can find more information at dentonbff.com. Again, it is Cheryl Fabio that we are on the phone with. Thank you again so much, Cheryl, for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You guys do not miss the fest. It is coming up right around the corner. We are going to be back here in just a few moments interviewing yet another contributor to the Denton Black Film Festival, so don't go anywhere. Thanks very much for being here, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out dentonradio.com for new Denton artists and where they're playing next. While you're surfing the internet, make sure you check out our friends Classic of Denton at classicofdenton.com.